Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. In its global economic outlook presented a few hours ago, the International Monetary Fund kept its forecast for Poland's economic growth at 3.2% for 2025 and 3.1% for 2026. Inflation is expected to average 3.8% later this year and 2.8% next year. And to discuss the broader global outlook, I'm joined by Poland's former Finance Minister, Paweł Wojciechowski. So glad to have you here with us in studio.
Nice to be here.
All right, so Paweł, please do talk to us about the IMF's latest forecast. I mean, what are triggering points here? Should we expect slowdown heading into 2026? The opposite, also, of course, with policy adjustments continuously taking shape. How would you describe all of this?
Actually, the outlook is more positive than expected because we know that the tariff shock that we've seen from the beginning of the year, nobody knew how it would be in the economy. So now we can see that it's not as bad as
we thought it would be.
Yes, if you want. Yeah, that's right. So slightly the growth has been is slightly smaller than forecasted before, 3.2%, down 0.2 percentage points, and next year 3.1%. So in fact we will have a very stable growth, but the risk remain. So the good side is that it's not as bad as we thought, but the bad side.
Give us the bad side.
The bad side is that the risk remain, but of course the risk are, in several areas. Mainly geopolitical risk. Still Gaza, Ukraine, the wars. Of course that the outlook, IMF outlook, did not kind of discuss the geopolitical events, such as accord, that was lately concluded for Gaza, Gaza Strip. But in general, that outlook, focuses more on tariffs. Discussing the tariff have not been so detrimental to the economic growth because many countries, kind of front-loaded, imports, like
right.
in the United States,
right.
In the beginning of the year, expecting higher tariffs, and also some complexities, emerge, So there is no downturn on growth, but the growth, on trade, but the trade is somehow different. The composition of trade is different than previously. For example, China is trading more with other Asian countries, maybe a little bit more with Europe, and so forth. So in general, there's a different composition, but the risk remain. Another element which is quite interesting is this element of AI, positive.
Challenges, right?
Yeah, positive.
I mean, that's changing the world.
Yeah, it's changing the world, especially in the U.S. economy. It's a big boost on valuations, stock valuations, on consumption as well. But at the same time, there's some...
Is AI going to replace stockbrokers?
Well, might replace a lot of jobs, including the stockbrokers in the future. But in general, there's some... during the press conference, there was discussion about that reminds a little bit of this dot-com bubble in the late 90s, that the valuation went up, mm-hmm. and then suddenly crashed. The stock market crashed. So there was like reminiscences of this happening. But again, it depends on where it goes. In the future, nobody knows. But again, maybe there's a time to think about it. What would it bring to the economy?
What do you think that the Polish government should consider to ensure that the economy actually remains resilient amid all these current global challenges that you mentioned? The wars, AI.
Well, most important element of those challenges is, of course, is the local challenge of this diminishing fiscal space, mm-hmm. because we run into high deficits. We're supposed to have a deficit of 5.5% of GDP, and now we're nearing 6.9% of GDP. So it's much higher than first, put in the budgetary law and forecasts. And of course, that results in in decreasing, medium-term outlook. And Fitch and Moody's, downgraded, not downgraded the Polish rating, but downgraded the outlook from stable to negative. That means that the debt will be more expensive for Poland, and we have a limited fiscal space and growing expectations in terms of infrastructure building, in terms of defense spendings. So altogether, it's difficult, and the same challenges are in other countries. You've seen lately, France, government collapse, one after another one,
yes.
And in many other countries, with this fiscal situation, and the Europe growth model is kind of to be revised in the future.
And if I just stay on Poland, do you think that China's restrictions on rare earth metal exports could pose a major challenge, and would these actually impact restrictions on Poland's economic growth? That's
excellent question. Not directly. I think how so? I mean, mostly will affect countries like the most advanced economies like Germany, Netherlands, and others in Europe. But every time there is some kind of supply side shock, like restriction of supply of rare earth materials or any type of other shocks, which are supply side shocks, like because of tariffs, that create distortions in the economy. Of course, countries are trying to build their own industrial policies to protect themselves, to control the supply chains, like in China. So China has put a lot of money, a lot of subsidies in two sectors, solar panels and electrical vehicles. And now the question is how the productivity will play around. Maybe that would be creating positive spillovers if they have a lot of exports. But at the same time, this is detrimental to other sectors of the economy. So question is how would it play for China as well. China is doing well, but of course has own problems with property markets, questions of internal demand, and has to sort it out in the future. So altogether, there is some potential impact on Poland, but they're indirectly through other markets.
And let me ask you this. The IMF did call for credible and transparent policy making to restore confidence. Now, do you think that given the current mix of economic nationalism, political polarization everywhere, do you think that this global coordination is still possible?
It's more and more difficult, but I remember, talks about Doha. People were saying, the Doha round, multilateral discussion on lowering tariffs didn't take place, and everybody was saying Doha is dead. And then suddenly, there was some kind of idea of regionalization of trade and for example, the discussion about how Europe could cooperate with Mercosur countries or maybe with Canada. And so there is not multilateral trade kind of options, but more of bilateral and regional trade options. So it opens up, and I think multilateralism is as such, that we know from the time that the World Trade Organization was formed after Bretton Woods. We don't see this happening, especially that a lot of trade tensions are there which are not being solved. For example, because of lack of judges, who are sent to be present at panels. So they are not being solved, like on rare earth minerals and other tensions. So I think that we have to resort to kind of second best, which is try to conclude some trade deals which are possible, bilateral or regional.
And hopefully we'll have a much more positive outlook looking ahead in 2026. Thank you so much, Paweł Wojciechowski, Poland's former finance minister, for all your input here with us.
Thank you very much.
And that's all for this episode of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching.